Hey, Fitheads. Today we talk with Bret Kelly. He's a strength coach for the U.S. Olympic ski team, X Games, St. Louis Cardinals, Chicago White Sox, a whole lot more. He now does general population coaching, and he's so freaking knowledgeable. It was really interesting to get a deep dive on everything from strength to hypertrophy to explosive power to you know, how perfectly right my workouts currently are.
He's got a lot of funny workouts on Instagram, funny eye-catching videos, I should say. And then so whenever I see those, I'm like, okay, well, I mean, what is this? Is this just cool, or is this for Instagram, or is this like? And then he walked us through a bunch of them, and he was like, yeah, scientifically, this is why I'm doing this. This is all this stuff on the, you know what I mean? He had
Yeah.
unbelievable explanations for
Contrast training.
contract. That was my favorite. We
I
talk,
know.
he does a really super heavy deadlift right into jumping, instant jumping as hard as you can, as fast as you can, as many times, pogo jumping. I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was really fun. A lot of rehab talk, which I'm always like, it's interesting to me, and I've been injured before, and it was such a trying and brutal athletic stretch of my life, I guess. Um, but he put a lot of stuff in perspective for it.
Right.
Fun.
And low key pro cupping. Wow.
Welcome to Total Fit Heads.
Serious fitness for not so serious people.
Hi, Bret. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah. I'm stoked to talk about this one, man. There's a lot going on your Instagram, and I have so many questions. First, let's start with just give us a background about you.
Yeah, so I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. I'm back here now. Kind of bounced around for a little bit in the strength conditioning world. So after getting my master's, I went out and interned with the U.S. ski team, which was awesome. That basically opened the doors for me to a lot of other opportunities just by getting to know a lot of good strength coaches there. So I went and worked for the St. Louis Cardinals minor league system for a little bit. If anybody knows anything about minor league strength conditioning, it's all over the place. Like it's like a 6-month gig, and then they expect you just to stick around and not get paid for 6 months, and then come back. And didn't want to do that, so I went and worked at SLU, St. Louis University. Worked there for baseball, softball, field hockey, swimming, diving, as a quote unquote like part-time strength coach, working 60 hours a week. Pretty typical for college setting.
Yeah.
And then got a job offer with the White Sox, so first full-time job offer. I was there for 3 seasons, and then I just had connections still with the ski team, so I ended up going back there and got to be there for the Olympic cycle to go to Pyeongchang, and got to go experience the Olympics over there and go through a whole season traveling the world with a few of my teams there. So I worked with U.S. free ski and aerial, so all the ones that you see in the X Games that are like going off jumps and half pipes and all that stuff. Obviously, they have a ton of injuries, so we can go into specifics on that if we want to later. But they have a ton of injuries, so I kind of just became almost like an expert on late stage rehab and helping rehab with our PTs. So we were all in the same space with physical therapists and strength coaches. So from a week or two out of surgery, a lot of times I would be working with them all the way till they got back on the hill. Me and my wife were looking to get back to St. Louis just to have a family, get closer to our family. Hadn't lived here in like 10 years. So we decided to move back here, and there was an opening at this Exos site here in St. Louis, partnered up with a hospital here where they were looking for somebody to do like the late stage rehab type thing. So it kind of just worked out where some of the connections for this space were connections I had with the Cardinals originally. So we originally moved back here, and I literally didn't have a plan. I was like, my wife had an offer at Boeing, so she came back here for that job, and I was like, I'll just do some personal training, figure it out, and kind of fell into this. So I've been here for 3 years now, and I'm the GM here. We're opening up another site here in like 2 months, so it's kind of crazy all over the place, but back home where I grew up. So
That's awesome. What a journey.
yeah.
Um, yeah, throughout all of that, I guess the first thing I want to know is what's common with everyone from an Olympic swimmer to now at Exo. What should everybody be doing?
I mean, I think overall, like I work with a lot of youth athletes now, and I know a lot of times I'll see their parents coming in, or even the kids come in and they see like cool stuff on, Instagram, or they'll see like the highlight reels that their athletes that they're, following or doing or whatever. And everybody kind of wants to know like what's that thing that's going to make them take them to the pros, take them to the next level. And I feel like the conversation I always have with people is like, it's honestly comes down to the basics. Like I worked with Olympic athletes and I'm like teaching them how to hip hinge, It's like just teaching people how to move, whether they're like a 50-year-old woman that can't hip hinge or they're a 20-year-old Olympic skier that can't hip hinge. Like a lot of times it's just like teaching people how to move properly, building those foundations and building up like a tissue tolerance so they can, advance that kind of stuff. So we do a lot of isometrics. I love doing FRC, like mobility, so functional range conditioning mobility. I think it depends on the athlete, but most people just need to kind of work and build some of those foundations and holding those positions that are those base positions, even if they're elite athletes.
Yeah, that FRC, is that the kind of flow stuff I see you doing on Instagram?
That stuff, usually the flow stuff is, I did jujitsu for a while and I kind of got into some of the flow stuff from like warm-ups with that, just helping with like hip mobility. I've had hip issues my whole life. So I kind of got to keep those guys greased up a little bit. But FRC, I kind of got into really when I was like my last year with the ski team. And it was, we all try to increase our mobility. I think that's a big thing. Like anybody can see in this industry is like, oh, let's hold these static stretches or let's do dynamic stretches, whatever we're going to do to increase our mobility, but we're not necessarily building strength in those added ranges of motion. So one thing I try to do, whether it's my rehab athletes or just like a youth athlete coming through that doesn't know how to move properly yet, is like, all right, we're going to add some mobility here, but let's also try to build that strength there, either by doing like full range of motion movements or doing FRC where we're holding like these static stretches in like a deeper range where we're actually activating those muscles. So for instance, if you guys know what the like shin box is, so like going down in a position where your knees are both like at 90 degrees, you're rotating your hips out. If you can Google just shin box or 90-90. And one of the ones I love doing for my internal hip rotation is I'll try to lift my back foot up off the ground. So I'm like driving that knee down, internally rotating that hip. People, if they haven't done that for a while, a lot of times they feel like their hip's about to cramp up. And really it's just because you're like utilizing muscles in like a end range that you haven't in a long time. So we're getting that extra mobility, but we're also utilizing that muscle in that extra mobility to help build that stability too. So, the last thing you want to do is have a bunch of extra mobility and then, go play a sport, get put into that extra mobility, have no strength, and then get injured, right? So that's really why I started utilizing a lot of that FRC stuff.
Yeah, interesting. I feel like just the fact that I sit around a lot too is probably screwing me on those end ranges.
Same. Yeah, I took over the GM role here like a year ago, so I'm still coaching, but not as much as I used to. A lot more admin work. The hours are nicer because I've been a coach my whole life, so my hours have been, craziness. So now it's way more of like a 9 to 5 if I want it to be. But I'm sitting at a desk more, which means I have to do way more stuff when I come up here to work out or, hip mobility work. Like I said, I have hip issues, so all of us need that stuff.
Growing up, when we would do stretches in high school sports, I would just hang forward, count to 10, clap, and then go to the next one. It seems like over the past, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 years, that's outdated and everyone's moving towards a dynamic stretching. Are static stretches not cool anymore? Or
let me just mention that you hanging forward was a new technology because before that in the 80s you'd bounce into the stretch.
That's true. I put my leotard on.
That's dynamic stretch. It just goes in a full circle, right? I mean, I think with anything in this industry, it's like utilizing everything a little bit. People get caught up too much in like, hey, I can only do it this way or only do it that way. And it's like, I want people to be able to hold static positions. I want people to be able to get into those positions dynamically too. I want my athletes to be able to like jump and be strong and move laterally. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I feel like in our industry, a lot of times people just get caught up in like the one thing that they feel like is their niche, and they don't want to like include other aspects of it. But no, we utilize static stretching too. I think it just depends on what your end goal is, right? If I'm really having issues getting into a mobility position, that static stretching might be that key to unlock to get into those positions. And then we stay in those positions by then building up some strength with either full range mobility or full range movements, or doing like FRC holds where you're building that strength in there too. Because again, if it's weak, if it's unstable, your body's going to want to lock it up and just increase that tightness.
Yeah. My body is generally extremely weak. That's one of my New Year's resolutions, is to introduce some shred of mobility.
There you go. FRC. Telling you, man, hop into some of that stuff, and it's static holds with a little bit of like muscle contracting too. So
there's another one
as a
where
CrossFitter, I just wanted to counter your lateral argument. Why would you do that?
lateral movements? Why would you
No,
ever do
that's
lateral movements?
not necessary. I have wall balls.
Yeah, you sound like any of the runners I work with. They're like, oh, my knees and my hips
You gotta
hurt.
go forward.
Yeah, my hip flexors are killing me. Like, you ever do anything laterally? And they're like, no. Why is that? Why would I do something laterally?
I just turn.
Yeah, just turn. That's my biggest
I
thing.
play tennis at 90-degree angles.
Yeah. Just, that's one of my biggest things. Yeah, with those athletes is coming in, and I'm like, sometimes I'll just give them like a warm up. It's like a lateral warm up. I'm like, start doing this every day, and like a lot of things are going to start feeling better because you're getting other muscles stronger.
When you're working with sport athletes, or athletes who are interested only in one sport, I should say, how often are they locked into that at the expense of strength? And I guess when do kids, or when should kids go from general strength to sport specific strength, if ever? I mean,
yeah,
I guess I would think that there has to be like, pitchers need to warm up their shoulders more than soccer players, for example. But that's a very sort of extreme example. Is there other stuff like that, or do you find that people need to? When do you sort of turn that on?
I mean, I would say like the level of like sports specific that we do, like we definitely do stuff that's sports specific, but it's more or less how can we encompass like some of our basic strength conditioning movements. Going back to what you just said there with the soccer players and the baseball players. If it's a baseball player, I might be doing more overhead strength stuff. I'm not like necessarily doing stuff working on what position their arm's going to be at while they're pitching, right? But I'm going to do waiter carries probably more with those athletes, right? I might still do carries and even waiter carries with my soccer players to work on more like core stability, or the fact that they're going to take a shoulder to shoulder, and I want your shoulder to be strong when you're going up for a header or something. But I'll probably spend more time doing some of that overhead work with an athlete. So I think it's just where we spend our time, where we put what buckets we try to fill up there necessarily. And it's not like I'm having a soccer ball in the weight room while I'm doing squats and getting super sport specific. I think sometimes parents and people see that kind of stuff, like I said earlier, and they think that's like what they need. I'd argue most of the pro athletes I work with, there's a lot of them that are on that pro level that still have a long way to go, actually, on like they're very skilled, but they can still change physically a lot more, right? They're not as different of an athlete as you'd think somebody else that's like in college or a high school setting. It's just they've been doing the actual sport longer, probably. So a lot of those athletes are doing super basic stuff as well too. So it takes a long time to get to the point where you like are so good at everything physically in the gym that you need to get to those extremes where you see in like, I know like Alvin Kamara is like a ridiculous athlete, and he comes to mind because I remember a couple of years ago seeing him do like single leg balance stuff on both ball, like throwing stuff back and forth. And there might be a time and a place for that sometimes with rehab, trying to build up proprioception. But for most of my athletes, like you just need to get stronger with like basic movements, honestly.
Yeah, that was one of my questions. Just the words tennis balls.
Yeah. And I do that stuff with my rehab athletes, and that's like, again, proprioception is your body's ability to know where it's at in space without looking at it, right? So, one of the reasons that when you sprain your ankle, it's easier to sprain it again is you lose that proprioception. So when I'm like focusing on a ball or focusing on a sport in front of me and I'm going to plant my foot and cut, I'm not thinking about how am I putting that foot in the ground? What's the angle of my knee? What's the angle of my hip, right? I'm an athlete. I'm just trying to focus on the external cue and get to that ball or get to that player. If I don't have that proprioception, my mind connection to my ankle isn't quite there. I might put my pressure a little bit further on the outside edge of my foot, and it's going to predispose me to, greater risk for another roll or something. So building that proprioception back up is one of the last things that comes back from an injury. A lot of times we don't get it back fully until we actually play the sport. But utilizing things like tennis balls or things that like distract you basically when you're trying to do basic movements. So I'll have my athletes do like basic lateral shuffles where I'll throw tennis balls at them, or I'll ask them like basic math questions and they have to like go one way or the other if it's odd or even. Like those little things are going to distract you just enough when you're not thinking about how you're moving, right? And that's sport. You're not thinking about where your ankles are. You're thinking about what the person in front of you is doing. When we do stuff with the tennis balls or whatever, like I even tell them, like, I don't give a shit if you actually catch the tennis ball. Like, I'm just trying to distract you, really. So it's not necessarily hand-eye coordination. It's just, how can we mess with you?
Yeah, interesting. It reminds me of that common thing where they do a round of jujitsu and then chess and then back to jujitsu.
I haven't heard about that. That sounds awesome.
There's a boxing one. They do that too. It's really brutal. You see them sit down and they're just like, ugh.
Just to try to get their brain like more to I guess like a different level of thinking or something. I don't know. That's crazy. I've never heard of that.
Right, totally. Okay, so then it sounds like you're saying more foundational stuff, but I still feel like I'm not doing enough, I don't know, goofy, boring, small things. Like what percentage of my training should be whatever this is with a band that a pitcher does versus squat, bench, dead, all the fun stuff. I feel like I'm doing all the fun stuff and missing the important tiny movements.
I don't know if you're missing it then.
Really?
If I have a pitcher, for instance, and we're trying to do band work, for me, a lot of times that's going to be a warm up for you to go pitch or something, right? So like, how can we, and all we're trying to do is get blood flow in those muscles. So you can do a whole bunch of different that you could, do what you're just doing right there, external rotations with the band. That's what we did when we were at the White Sox, because it was super easy to have bands, clip them to a fence, have everybody in the outfield go through, crossover Ys, Ts, As, whatever, and they're getting blood flow in their shoulders, and then they go start warming up the pitching, right? Like if I had kettlebells, I would have done waiter carries with them too. Like there's a whole bunch of different reasons to do that, but the main thing is just to get that blood flow there, whether it be like to warm up to actually pitch, or if you're rehabbing, we all know like increasing blood flow to injured areas is going to help with the rehab process. So now we're just trying to get blood flow to that area to try to help it rehab a little bit. So I don't think that we necessarily need to do that. Like especially like all of us, we're not pitchers, but if I'm going to go do some overhead snatches or something where I want some more blood flow in my shoulder, I do crossover Ys on my cables all the time. Or, if I had a band and that's all I had, I would be doing that kind of stuff too, just to get that blood flow in there. So just to warm up like anything else, the proprioception stuff, I'll utilize that sometimes with my adult clients. Most of them will come here straight after work. They've been sitting at a desk all day. Their CNS might be fried. Maybe they've been sleeping like crap. Their mind is on work. How can we snap them out of that? All right, let's bring in some stuff that's first off fun, but also it's going to make them have to like react and think to things and bring them into the workout and kind of take them away from what their everyday life is or what their everyday work is too. So I think that kind of stuff for people that are working all day can kind of help just start off the workout in a positive way, and then they can kind of open up that brain to then go and try to work a little bit harder on the actual workout side of things.
It sounds a little bit like meditation.
Yeah, we can do
that. I'm convinced that working out is my form of meditation, therefore I don't need to meditate.
Yeah, meditating's hard. I've tried it, but for me, I got into like the whole ice bath thing or cold shower thing. But I do cold showers just because it's easier to set up, honestly. Like the ice bath and the cold showers suck more, honestly. But for me, it's like when I try to meditate, I'm thinking about too much. But if I try to like breathe and go into a cold shower, like I'm in that moment right there because you're not thinking about anything else when you're sitting there in a cold shower. So for me, that's my way of like meditating. I do that shit right before bed, and my wife thinks I'm crazy. So maybe I am. I don't know.
As does Max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
I hate cold showers, because you could do a warm shower, which I feel like is lost on a lot of people. I'm not sure why. You just twist the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
Do you find that it's good? And I hate to say it because I can't say it without an eye roll. Do you find that it's a good way to train getting out of your comfort zone?
With that, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to get out of your comfort zone, right? Like I think that's one thing you can do if you want to do that. That's not necessarily why I do it. I do it, like I said, to kind of switch my brain. But I like doing more physical challenges in the gym. That's just how my mind works. Like I want to challenge myself on seeing, if I can run this mile under a certain time or lift this weight or whatever. That's personally how I like to do it. But some people might not like that, and they might want to challenge themselves a different way. So I think however you want to challenge yourself, I think, I read the Comfort Crisis. I don't know if you guys ever read that book. It's awesome. And
Easter? Michael,
yeah.
Mike Easter? Yeah.
Anyway,
Easter?
he starts talking about a lot of that kind of stuff and just how, we can all get out of our comfort zone more because we look at our lives and like how comfortable they actually are. Like we're all sitting in probably 70-degree rooms right now. And that's like how we always live. Like if it's 60, we're like, oh my God, it's a little cold. If it's 75, I'm like, oh my God, it's a little hot. So it's like a very finite number of temperatures that we can actually live in and be comfortable, which is ridiculous to think about. So you think about, 100 years ago, people were living in all different types of temperatures. And that one little thing is like a huge comfort issue to us if it were changed. So, I mean, I try to do stuff on a weekly basis I don't think I necessarily think about it that way, but just the way my mind works, like to make myself uncomfortable. I think like the other day I had a stressful day. It was raining outside and I don't even run that often. And I was like, I'm going to go run outside. And I just went and ran like 2 miles in the rain. And it was awesome. I came back and was, it wasn't meditation or whatever. And, going back to what Ali said, like maybe that was my form of meditation. Because I went out and, was just pushing myself and kind of in my own head, and then came back and wasn't thinking about any other shit I had to get done.
Yeah, your own personal sports montage.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just listening to 80s music the whole time.
Were you running in slow motion?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I'm always like, oh, there's nothing worse than running, but apparently you found it. It's running in the rain.
Honestly, I think it's better than regular running. I don't know. But
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to touch on this because you kind of hit it when we were talking earlier. The rehab and getting blood flow to the muscle. Do you ever think about that when you're not rehabbing someone, but just recovering from a leg day? You know what I mean? So, because I've heard about this, but never used it myself. I just do a leg day and then don't touch my legs for a week. But is there a better way to handle that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same aspect of like recovering from an injury, just on a obviously way lower scale. When we go work out, we're causing damage to our muscles, right? Like that's main reason we're sore is there's actually like microscopic damage to your muscles. Your body's like, oh fuck, we gotta repair our muscles so that doesn't happen again. And that's how we get stronger, protein synthesis and everything. So a way to help with any injury is increase blood flow, because inflammation and blood flow to an area is natural way of healing. Your body's going to bring those natural healing properties to that area. So whatever we can do to get that blood flow to the area is going to be beneficial. Sometimes it's the hardest thing to do if you have a hard leg day and you're sore the next day is to get out and move. And I try to tell people like, whatever you can do to move. If you're doing body weight squats at home, whatever, if you're doing a bike, if you're going, on a hike, whatever it might be, like it doesn't have to be high intensity, but something that's going to get your heart rate up a little bit, get some blood flow to those muscles, ideally low impact. So you're not going to like just increase that damage. That's going to help in the long run. I'm sure we've all probably felt those times where we're sore and we go out and do something and then we feel better after because it is having that healing process. And that's what a lot of that like Normatec and a lot of those like air pressure or compression pants are for, is they'll actually put compression on your muscles, which is going to restrict the blood flow of new blood flow for a little bit. And then when it releases, you get a bunch of new blood flow in there, which is similar to like if I was to grab my arm and hold it for a little bit and then I let it go, it turns pink, right? It was white. Now it's getting pink. I'm getting fresh blood flow in there. So new healing properties, that kind of stuff. It's all, that's really all therapy is in general, is just getting blood flow to those areas, whether it's like Grastons where they're scraping you, dry needling where they're poking you. Ultrasound is just basically like heat from within, right? All that stuff is just getting blood flow to those areas.
An oil change.
Exactly.
That's what Max calls it.
Have you ever had the dry needling done?
I haven't.
Oh yeah.
No, I'm too scared.
You like it?
The needles are tiny. You can barely feel
them. So you've done it and it's helpful?
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely helpful. I have some therapists downstairs that I'm lucky enough to work in a facility like this where, if they have time and I have something going on, which I pretty much always do, we can poke it. And I always say it's like almost like extremely specific foam rolling where they can go through and you find those knots, you can feel your muscles start twitching and then just like relax and release.
Whoa.
And I mean, there's a bunch of different styles they can do. So they can attach stem to it as well to get the muscles to contract. And that's, again, to get more blood flow in that area. They can actually do like pecking, which is the worst, where they'll go through and they'll actually move it up and down. And you're causing, again, like micro trauma to that area. That's getting new blood flow to this area. A lot of times they'll do that in areas that's like really hard to get blood flow into. So a lot of tendons are white because they don't have a lot of blood flow. So if I have a tendon, a tendonitis or something, I might go in and like pack or do different dry needling techniques and trying to get some new blood flow in that area. And then Graston is where they have like the big metal, almost spoon looking things, and they're scraping your arms and everything. So all that stuff is super fun.
I've done cupping before.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I look dope like Michael Phelps, but I wasn't sure if it was like doing anything.
Yeah, that's the main reason to do it, just to look like Michael Phelps. Yeah, you can get a cupping set on Amazon for like $10 and do it yourself. I mean, you're not going to hurt yourself with that. So cupping is something I have at home, and I use it for my neck a lot because it's hard like to really kind of roll out and get some of these areas, when you have like some tense muscles. So get some cup into that area. I like to do it where I'll get like some pressure, but not super pressurized, so I can actually still move it up and down. And then when you get it, when you take it off, you'll see, obviously it's all like red, again, new blood flow.
Yeah, we had I forget who we had on, but we were talking about, he was doing a very specific shoulder or back movement, and he was like, watch this spot on my back. I'm doing this to like push blood into my back. And the one spot he pointed to was like, it just got redder and redder and redder as the set went on. And he was like, that's what I'm trying to do, push blood into it. And then I'm like, what how did where did that come? Like, it never, my grade school strength training certainly to prepare me for that.
No, I mean when you were doing like 3 sets of 10 forever.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what my buddy's older brother told me to do.
Yeah, or my football coach.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. Hypertrophy versus strength, or I don't know, explosiveness, speed. What are even the categories?
I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch, and there's a blend in between all of them, right? So we try to have, we'll start off everybody really on like a foundational phase. A lot of times we're doing that. We're doing a lot of like isometrics, like I was saying earlier, building up that tissue tolerance so it can get used to those positions. And eventually we can add load to those positions without having to worry about any, possible either pain or tissue injuries. So those foundational phases are just teaching, really. Once we get past that, we can go into some more hypertrophy phases. So now we're thinking like higher rep schemes, typically higher rep schemes. So, for me, it's like that 10 to 15 rep scheme, really trying to cause that, like that pump feeling. I know we all joke about like getting the pump or whatever, but that's actually what's causing hypertrophy.
It's not a joke.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Who's laughing?
But we getting that pump feeling is actually causing red blood cell rupturing because you're getting so much blood in one area. It's causing some obviously muscle damage just from the actual load on it. your body again is like, what the hell's happening? Let's send growth hormones, testosterone, all the stuff to that area to try to fix it so that doesn't happen again, right? So that's how we can build muscle. And then obviously with the strength side of things, I'm thinking like for me, it's got to be 80% or more for my intensity. So you can look at that as like actually a 1 rep max, 80% or more of my 1 rep max. Or if you're doing like a scale of 1 out of 10, like an RPE, it'd be like 8, 9, or 10. And, for those, we're doing reps of 6 or less. For power, I'm usually doing 4 or less. For strength and for power, I want to make sure I have a lot of rest in between, because all those things you should be focusing on. If I'm doing power, for instance, I want all those jumps or all those pulls or whatever it might be to be max power, right? So I have to be moving as fast as I can, either body weight or with the lightweight I do have. So I'm going to make sure I have a lot of rest in between those. Same thing with the strength side of things. With hypertrophy, we can have low rest because we're just trying to push blood flow into that area. Recently, I've been messing around with Jake Tura is a guy that does a lot with he talks a lot about like jumpers and knees and jumping and stuff. But I'm trying to think of the name of the program that he put together, and I started like reading some research on it, and I've started incorporating it. Basically, what it is if we think about a hypertrophy set of being like, again, let's go to super simple. First thing we ever did when we were in high school, 3 sets of 10, right? That's a hypertrophy set. That's like the base, probably hypertrophy set. Because after that, I'm going to start adding reps or adding sets. So 3 sets of 10. So we got 30 reps. Let's say I can do 100 pounds of that, right? Well, if I flip that and now I'm doing 10 sets of 3, I'm going to be able to do more weight because it's only 3. I'm still getting 30 reps. So if I look at my overall load for that day, I'm going to be moving a shitload more weight, and I'm going to have the same amount of reps. So doing that with still like low, like 30-second rest in between has been something that I've been playing around with. And I know that Jake Tura guy's been playing around with. A lot of people are seeing good results with that as far as hypertrophy. So I've been utilizing that like once a week on my hypertrophy phases for like our main lift. So that way we can still kind of get strength. We can still get those higher loads. It's not going to be like my peak 3 rep max because I got to do it 10 times. And I'm resting.
And you're not
seconds.
decreasing, right? You're trying to stay the same throughout.
Yeah, you're trying to stay relatively the same. Your first couple sets might be lighter because you're building up into it or something. But yeah, ideally 10 working sets. And I mean, yeah, it's just a basic math thing at the end of the day. Like, look at your total volume. If you can do more volume and the same number of reps, or sorry, more intensity, same number of reps, you're obviously going to see greater changes. So there's so much wiggle room in all these types of like rep schemes and goals. And I mean, that's one thing I tell a lot of young coaches when they're coming up and our interns and stuff. It's like, when you have a program, there's freaking like 50 different things you can try to program in there. And if you're a young coach, sometimes you try to program too much shit into one program. It's like, have 1 or 2 goals, find something that works for you at that time, utilize that, and obviously keep researching the others and adapt as you go. So my programs are kind of always changing. I can look at my programs from 10 years ago, and I was doing some different stuff back then. And I think that's the sign of a good coach, is to always push yourself and keep learning.
Yeah. So is it bad to try and train in these multiple ways within one program or even within one day? Let's take, this is a hypothetical example. There's a white chick in LA that on a leg day will start with cleans to try and be explosive, and then do sets of 3 squats to try and be strong, and then burn out on a leg press with high reps to try and hypertrophize.
Yeah, theoretically.
We'll never know, obviously.
Somebody like that.
Theoretically.
I wouldn't say it's necessarily bad, because you're still going to get better at all those things, but you're not going to get better at all those things as fast as you would if you're focusing on one specific thing. So if I want to get more powerful, everything I should do should be towards that power phase, right? Because now I'm telling my body exactly how I want it to change. We've all, seen people that have lost weight, seen people that have tried to put on weight. It's hard to change your body. Like, your body wants to stay where it's at now because it's comfortable. So how do we change that? Well, we have to put a shitload of stimulus in one direction for it to change in really any direction, right? So if I want to be more powerful, my whole program should be really power. If I want it to be increase that strength, it should really be strength. Hypertrophy, same thing. But for most people, they don't necessarily need to be like, I want to be the strongest person, I need to squat the max amount of weight or be the most powerful. most of us just want to be pretty good at everything. And that's why a lot of us end up doing programs like that. And that's fine, because that's what's going to happen, right? You're not going to be elite at any of those probably, but you're going to get better at all those still. So I think it's totally fine for somebody that's not like, doesn't have an end goal of, being top Olympic weightlifter or top powerlifter or top sprinter, or whatever it might be. If I have an athlete in here that has one of those goals, then I'm getting very, very specific on what their program is going to be and how we can utilize those different rep schemes.
Yeah, but how long is a power phase?
So for most people, when I do blocks, they're 4 to 6 weeks. Yeah. 4 to 6 weeks is what most of my blocks are. After that, we'll take a deload, whether that be like just reducing reps or just changing up the stimulus a little bit. So if I'm doing like strength, I might just do power for a week and then come back to some strength. So, I think again, I keep saying this, but it depends on the athlete and how much time you have in the goal, right? If I have freaking 12 months, I can look at the whole year and I can map out exactly how many phases we're going to do. We can rotate through those phases. We can do a month of hypertrophy, a month of strength, a month of power. Let's go back to hypertrophy, but we're adding intensity now. So it's a little bit higher intensity than the previous hypertrophy, and we're building up those phases that way. If I only have 3 months with people, those are going to be way shorter phases. Maybe now I'm only doing them 4 weeks instead of 6 weeks. So, most people can handle 4 to 6 weeks of one phase before they their body needs a break in some capacity.
And you can sense that? Like you're like, oh, this guy needs a deload.
I mean, I would like to say I could sense it as a strength coach, but maybe not with everybody. So, I'll do monitoring too with my athletes, so we'll monitor their sleep. I literally just ask them how they're feeling 1 through 10. So they'll rate that on there. I check their resting heart rates. We have force plates here. I force plates in my old place. So we'll do like different jumps, and we can actually see. Right now we're looking at RSI, which is reactive strength index. So it's like ground contact time divided by flight time. So that's something you can't fake. So you'll just do like 10 pogo jumps. If your CNS is fried and you're fatigued from stress of, I don't know, maybe you're going through a breakup or something like that, or maybe you just haven't been sleeping, or maybe you're hungover. I don't know. Whatever you're stressed for.
All three
of those things. Exactly. I'm glad we're on the same page there. But that CNS, your central nervous system, that's the first thing that's going to start going. And a lot of times we can't feel that right away necessarily, or necessarily see it with strength, because you can still grind through stuff. But when you're talking about like pogos, like very quick reaction times, like that stuff's going to tank a lot of times before you see anything else. Your body also reacts a lot of times with your resting heart rate before you start feeling that kind of stuff. So before you start getting sick, or again, the day after drinking, like most of us, our heart rates spike up. So if we look at that stuff on a regular basis, and all of a sudden we start seeing, hey, this person's daily heart rate's going up, we're outside of like one standard deviation of their normal, and their RSI is looking like shit or whatever, 2 red flags pop up. Let's go have a conversation with this person, see what's going on. Start talking with them. They're super stressed because finals are coming up and they're failing a class, and this and this and this is happening. All right, is it programming? Is it regular stress? How can we adjust? Sometimes, when I worked in pro baseball, if they were a top athlete on that team, they're playing every day no matter what, because they have to play every single day. So that's not getting adjusted. So stuff we do in the gym can get adjusted. We can do more recovery stuff. I can try to, again, work on, like, if we need to do some type of meditation type stuff with them or mindset training. But I think it's just, individualized to that person and trying to figure out the situation.
We both have
I gotta get one of
heart rate
force
monitors, and after drinking, every single time the heart rate monitor is like, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
It was 30% higher than normal last night. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Are you dying? You're in tachycardia.
Like, yeah, I just poisoned myself for 12 hours. I liked the pogo jump. One of my favorite videos of yours was contrast training, where you heavy hex bar deadlifted and then hopped up in pogo. Explain, please.
Yeah, so contrast training is just basically we're priming the muscles before we go do something powerful. So, the way your muscles work, if I'm lifting something heavy, is you're going to recruit however many muscle units you need to move that weight, right? So if I'm moving like something that's like 50%, I'm going to basically utilize whatever I need to move that weight at 50%. If I'm trying to move like an 80% of my max weight, I'm going to obviously recruit more muscle units. So what we do is we find a weight that's above usually 80%, because for me, that's considered heavy. For most people, most strength coaches, they call that, heavy intensity at that point. So something 80% or above, I'll try to move that, and then we'll go into something powerful. So those muscle units are already primed. So research has shown that if you do that, your now power phase or plyometric is going to actually have greater power, because you already have those larger muscle units primed up. And then you have French contrast training, which is even more crazy. So when we think about the force velocity curve, which is, if you look at powerlifters, right, they can do a lot of force. Somebody's squatting 800 pounds, but they're moving super slow with that, right? So, they're standing up super slow because it's taking them a long time, but that's a shitload of force. Now, on the flip side of it, I have somebody who's doing a plyometric. They're not doing a lot of force because they have no weight on their shoulders, just body weight, but that speed they're doing is very high. And then everything in between, you have like Olympic lifting, you have just regular, like 80% of my max, everything in between. So French contrast training is basically trying to play along that whole curve. So they'll do, hex bar. I do like 80% above of that. And then I'd go do a plyometric. So I'm hitting two sides of my force velocity curve. And then I'm going to go do like a weighted jump, or like an Olympic lift, something that's like a weighted power move. And then I'm going to go do like an overspeed jump. So an overspeed jump would be like, if I have the band, I pull that down, so I'm doing like pogos or jumps, something that's going to be like lighter than body weight. So I'm going to go even faster than I normally could.
Just go jump on the moon.
Yeah, jump on the moon. So all those things are just basically making you hit all aspects of that force velocity curve. And that's why, like, if I have a power lifter, I'm still going to do some speed work with them, because it's going to help them with that power side of things, because you're going to get part of that force velocity curve you wouldn't normally, and vice versa. If I have like a sprinter or a jumper, I'm still going to do strength stuff with them too, obviously, even though they really just need a lot of that plyometrics and like the, tissue tolerance stuff.
Interesting. Yeah, so I'm not recruiting all my muscles. See, the reason that I can't backflip is because I'm not deadlifting before it.
Oh,
so
sure.
I'll just
You have
do
a
that
spotter for
later.
I spotter over Zoom.
Yeah. Is that a form thing or is that a power thing?
It's both. I think it's a genetics thing. I blame my mom. I haven't got a backflip yet.
That's fair.
We haven't even talked about the Olympics yet. Everybody is sitting here through this episode waiting. Did you go on Tinder at the Olympics?
No, I had a wife then, so that was
you can still look. But, it's like
me and my wife met on Tinder, so we had.
Oh yes, you've since deleted your profile.
Shout out Tinder. This episode is now sponsored.
There you go. Are they still a thing?
Honestly, I don't even know.
Yeah.
But the Olympic injury sounds insane. Oh my goodness. And is it the kind of thing where it's common for Olympic athlete to train all their life and then boom, it's over with just one thing that goes wrong, or they're so trained that you can't really take them out like that?
Well, with the sport I worked with, free skiing, it's very unforgiving sport in the sense that they're doing, multiple flips in the air on skis.
The ground, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, the ground, the ice.
The ground is unforgiving.
Watching half pipe was always the most terrifying thing for me, because you watch it at the top as a coach, so you can see the full pipe, and you'll have people that go up. So the top of the pipe, the flat part, is called the deck, right? So you'll see people go up to the top. They're 20 feet above the air usually. You'll see them start drifting sometimes. They're going to hit the deck. And they come down, their side of the legs hit the deck. So that's one impact. And then they fall down the ice and hit the bottom again. So that's two impacts, one fall. It's like a 22-foot drop.
Oh, God.
So watching half pipe was always, because, you would know before it was going to happen that they were going to deck. Most of those athletes have been doing it their whole life. They're used to it. They get back up, but obviously injuries happen. With most field-based sports, I would say you can never prevent injuries, right? But you can try to help reduce injuries by teaching people how to stop properly, how to land properly, that kind of stuff, how to decelerate, right? But with most of my skiing injuries, it was like a ski popped off and then their other ski caught an edge. And then if you have like, a ski attached to like, imagine your foot being on a plank and then somebody just grabbed that and just rotated as fast as they could. Like your knee's going to give out or your hip or your knee. So like most of that stuff wasn't going to be stopped with how strong you were, right? It's more of a sometimes luck, sometimes equipment, sometimes the person trying to save a landing when they should have just fell. All that kind of stuff plays into it for sure. But we definitely had multiple athletes that got injured the year of the Olympics. On the flip side, I had some athletes that didn't think they were going to make the Olympics. They got back like faster than they thought they were going to, which was really cool stories too. I had athletes that got concussions at the Olympics. It was all types of stuff. I think the biggest thing I learned when I came back after the Olympics was like, as a coach or anybody, you always think about the people that win, right? And it's really cool. And it's amazing to go see your athletes win and see them train all the time. But most of your athletes that you go there with are going to fail and they're going to lose and they're not going to come back with a medal. And like, obviously as a coach, you have to deal with that too. So it's like, there was 2 days where we won 3 medals. Our team won 3 medals in the Olympics, 1 on the girls' side, 2 on the guys' side. But, we had like 6 other people that didn't medal. So it's like, it's kind of a roller coaster as a coach because it's like you're talking to these other people who you've been training as well. And like they're, obviously like in a terrible place because they just literally just lost their chance at a medal. But then they're like best friends and other people that you're really close with just, succeeded. And it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. They did make the Olympics. That's
yeah. For sure. But that's like a whole different celebration,
Yeah, that's true.
Like when you're there, obviously like you want to win. And if you're, most of those athletes, especially on the half pipe, all had like a legitimate chance for a medal too. So we had one of the guys that he fell like hard all 3 runs because he was trying like a new trick and ended up getting a concussion. So he was like all over the place mentally afterwards. And like his 2 really good friends both medaled. So it's like nuts. But unbelievable experience still though.
So what are we doing? We're doing a lot of core with the half pipe. If there's spinning or or is it a lot of butt? What are we thinking?
Really clench. Get tight.
Get tight. With the half pipe, for me, it's a lot of hips, a lot of hip mobility stuff too, because the way that they set their rotations is they'll push off the ground and rotate through their hips. So you can think like a baseball swing, right? Mm-hmm. So I plant that foot down. I want to be able to push and rotate those hips through. So if I don't have that internal hip rotation, I'm not able to, move my pelvis kind of over those fixed femurs. Now with my aerial athletes, aerials is the sport where you see them go off like the one jump, their hands are over their head and they go off those huge jumps by themselves. So aerials, they just get all of their rotation from arm drops. So they go off and they try to be as straight as they can. So if they stay completely straight, that's going to be like a perfect score for them. And then they just drop their arms. So if I was to sit here and do a straight backflip, right? If I just went straight back and had my arms over my head, if I dropped one arm, I would rotate to my right just because of physics. So that's how they will do their rotation. So they don't necessarily need that hip rotation like the other guys do because they're going to push off. They need a lot more of that core stability like you were talking about. So for them, I did a ton more of core stability work. We actually did some stuff where they would sit on Bosu balls, hold weights over their head, and you just rock them like all around. Most
like a bully.
Yeah, I was also like twice the size of most of them. So. Yeah, most of them were like high level gymnasts too, so they obviously already had quite a bit of core strength. Yeah. We had one kid that would always come in on his own, and we did I'm trying to think what we call it, like hanging windshield wipers, right? Have you ever seen those where you like hang off the bar? Yeah, bring those legs up in the air and rotate side to side. He would do that, but it wasn't hard enough, so he would put ski boots on that are like 20 pounds. So he would like do that with ski boots on.
What the heck?
Yeah, it was nuts.
That kid would be a hit on Instagram.
Yeah.
When you're talking about core, I need to bring this up because I am still confused. Dead bugs, why does that exist? Am I doing it wrong? It doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah, I do them just for like a warm up. So again, let's get muscle activation going. Let's make sure we're getting blood flow in those areas too, right? So it's just easier to contract those muscles if we already have blood flow in that area. So when I'm doing dead bugs, one of the biggest cues I always say is to make sure that low back is pushed flat in the ground. So if I'm arching my low back and I'm doing it, it usually doesn't feel like anything. If I'm pushing that low back down, it's still not going to feel like a straight like core exercise where I'm like getting like, that ab pump or anything. It's more kind of like a deeper, like low back type exercise where you're just getting some blood flow to some of those deeper core muscles for stability. So we'll utilize that a lot as like our prep phase of the workout. And we'll go do that before we go do some like other core workouts, or utilize that before we just go do heavy lifting to make sure we can, stabilize our cores.
Yeah, now I need to go.
Now you're like,
try
it was
putting
like
my lower
doing this
back.
right the whole time.
How much of it are you doing like mental coaching with the Olympics, or is that like, I feel like there could be several other coaches that deal with that and only do that?
Yeah, we had a mindset coach. It wasn't full time with the ski team, so he worked with the Jazz when we were there too. But if our athletes like needed anything specifically, they could reach out to him to do that kind of stuff. Obviously, anytime you travel with the teams, you become really close with a lot of the athletes and the coaching staff and everything. So, you're trying to help them as much as you can. So there's still some of that, but it's not like a structured specific thing. I would try to help people just through, like I said, like the meditation type stuff, mindful thinking, making sure they're like kind of staying present in the day sometimes, because you get people that are just, overanalyzing situations sometimes, which I completely understand. But if it was anything outside of my scope, I definitely try to get him on the phone and talk to them, which I think is super important for any athlete.
Yeah.
Should we ask our question, Ali?
Oh God.
Oh yeah. We only have one question that we ask everyone. How do you incorporate alcohol in training? Or do you
incorporate it?
Yeah.
I don't know if I
you got an athlete that loves wine, what do you do?
They can drink their wine, that's fine.
And then hit the deck on the pipe because they drank.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I was gonna say I worked with free skiers, so if you don't think that they're having some beers after, I don't know. You haven't been to a mountain, apparently. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, like most of the athletes I worked with were like 18 to 26. So, and then like when I was with the ski team when I was in college, same thing, 18 to 22. So most of them are going out and partying and stuff. And for me as a coach, it's obviously that's fine with me. Just like obviously as long as it's not affecting your training with me, I don't really care if you come in and you're hungover and sitting your ass home.
Yeah.
You're putting them, you're not running them.
God no, they don't deserve to get better. They can go home and go sleep. So I had athletes come in, and I did that when I was a SLU a few times with the ski team. If you're like coming in hungover, there's people there that aren't hungover that want to get better. Like I'm not going to run you, and which is something that could potentially get you stronger or better fit, like or more fit or whatever. No, like you can go home. You clearly don't give a shit about it enough at that point. There's time and a place. Like shit, we were at the Olympics, right? Like plenty of nights we went out and dumb shit happened. And everybody's celebrating whatever. Like there's time and place all over it. But if we know we have a training session and we know it's like for specific reasons, like obviously just get your shit done like any other athlete. Everybody fucks up. There's times in a place, but if it's like a reoccurring thing, then it's a conversation you have to have with people.
Yeah, it makes me think about I say that I have to earn my workouts, so if I don't sleep well, I'm not allowed to work out either.
Yeah. How much are you sleeping?
What's that?
So how much are you sleeping?
I am in bed. I'm so glad you asked. For 9 hours, and I make sure that I'm unconscious for 8 of those hours, but hopefully more. And now it's very serious.
I have a almost 2-year-old, so I don't.
Oh no.
So the problem is, me and my wife put her to bed, And then we're like, oh, now we have us time. And then we don't go to sleep until like midnight. And then she's waking up at like 6 or 7. And we're like, we're idiots. Why do we go to bed at midnight? And then the next day, the exact same thing happens forever. So,
no, when they're 18, you're good. You can go back to sleeping.
yeah, I think I've gotten to acceptance now where I'm just like, oh, this is just life. But no, yeah, definitely need to prioritize my sleep better. That's something that me and her have been talking about a lot. But and I track my own, we were talking about like resting heart rates and sleep, and I track all that stuff too. And it's just funny, like it's like exact correlation with how I feel versus my sleep. It's like, I don't know. It's me and one of the other coaches were talking about how he was having knee pain for a while, and he actually started utilizing the stuff that as coaches we do with our athletes. And it's like, it's funny as a strength coach, it takes us so long to actually like heed your own advice sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna fucking squat anyway.
Yeah.
Or like tell people, you're like, why are you sleeping like shit? And I'm like, I slept 5 hours and I have had 8 cups of coffee today.
I have no idea.
So we all know, we just don't do it. So yeah, time to listen to my own advice a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you use to track?
I just do it myself. So I do resting heart rate in the morning. So I wake up, resting heart rate. Yeah.
You count it.
You count?
30-second resting heart rate. And
technology.
Then I have an Excel file. Sorry, what is it called? Google Sheets, but I can't remember whatever, where you can like fill it out. Google Forms. There we go. So I have a Google Forms where I just type in all the information. So I do resting heart rate. For me, my personal one at least, I do resting heart rate, how hard my workout was yesterday, how many minutes it was. I multiply those together to give me like a load of my workout. That way, if I'm like running or lifting, it'll kind of even out a little bit. And then I actually write down how many drinks I had the night before because I want to see how much that affects. Which again, we already talked about that a little bit. And then is that all I do? I think it's just those ones. I'm missing something probably.
Please tell me you sell this form for Gen,
like you
Gen
built
Pop.
your own app.
That's amazing.
It's just for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just for me. Yeah, sleep hours, training time, training intensity, number of drinks, sleep hours, how I was feeling that day, and resting heart rate.
Wow.
Amazing. Sell it.
So, yeah, the chart right now looks pretty ridiculous because I was in Mexico a week ago.
Double digits number of drinks.
Yeah, so it's
number of tacos is on there now.
I went first. Like, does this say 18 drinks? And I was like, well, I mean, I had like 10 before noon, and I was up for
12 it was over 18 hours.
I was like, that's just a rough estimate. I don't know.
Oh no.
It's like your resting heart rate was 95 the next day.
Yeah.
Well, probably I slept 5 hours. My CNS was complete.
But I'm tracking, so that's what's important. I'm just keeping track of it.
I know what not to do. So yeah, I do those.
I'm just double checking what not to do.
And then I check my acute to chronic load ratio, which is looking. So my load is, again, like I said, how hard my workout was, and then how many minutes. I should multiply those together for like a daily load. And I look at acute to chronic load is the last 7 days compared to the last 30 days. So ideally, you don't want that to get above like 150%. So like, if my last 30 days, I haven't done shit, and all of a sudden I crush myself for like a week, my acute chronic load is going to spike. That causes, red flag for possible injuries or something like that. When I first started reading about that and messing with that, and this maybe goes into how I take a little bit, I was like, I want to see how high I can get my acute chronic load ratio and see what happens. So I got it up to like 3. Like I was just completely destroying myself in the gym and running and stuff. And there's no way to tell if this was specifically because of that, but obviously I'm sold that it was. I went mountain biking and I was coming down, and I lived in Park City for a long time and like did tons of mountain biking, like downhill races, that kind of stuff. So good enough where this shouldn't have happened. But I was going down this little trail, and it was like this wood thing, and all of a sudden, like I clipped a tree on my left side on my handle, and went all the way around, went over my handlebars, hit my face on like a 2x4s, and like knocked myself out, concussion or whatever. So I have an Instagram story somewhere from a long time ago, and it was like acute to chronic load ratio spikes, and it was like concussion. Like, back down. So obviously, I'm sure my central nervous system was fried at that point, and I probably wasn't reacting the way I would have normally. Like I said, there's no way to show that specifically correlates, but it's just an interesting fact, I guess, that happened.
Right.
Yeah, crazy. And that you can't really pick up how compromised you are at that point because it's your brain that's living it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure, if I was tracking resting heart rate, that probably would have been up a little bit too. We used to track weights with some of my athletes, and that was another thing. The crazy part is when you track this stuff, like everybody kind of reacts differently. So that's why you have to track like so many things. Because I might have one athlete, and their heart rate doesn't really ever change, but all of a sudden they start dropping weight because they're getting sick. And another athlete whose weight doesn't change, their heart rate spikes, or their pogo jumps or start looking like shit or whatever. So it's like you want to kind of track everything, and when those red flags start popping up, it's just a way to have those conversations with the athletes, right? It's not like you can't work out now. It's like, what's going on? Are you feeling okay? Is this happening? Are you sleeping well? So yeah.
Interesting that the red flags are different. Even that's personalized. Wow.
Yeah, everybody's bodies reacts differently for sure. It's weird. The crazy part is how your body. Sorry,
go ahead.
I was saying how your body reacts to stress like the same way. Like like I was saying earlier, if you're going through a breakup, or if you're just working out super hard, your body releases cortisol in both for both of those, and your body sees that as stress either way. So there could be a lot of different things that are causing you stress physically or causing you stress emotionally, and your body's going to just see it as stress and react the same way, crash your central nervous system, probably spike heart rate or drop weight or something like that. But I just always thought that was interesting with like the emotional stress versus physical and how it really causes the same stuff.
I know, and like mentally it feels like they're separate things, but really it's all the same energy that refreshes every morning, and you can burn it out however you choose.
Yeah. And if you've ever had anxiety, like there's a lot of people that when they have anxiety, it becomes very physical. You can feel it. You can feel the exhaustion after, like, and that's all mental.
Right, totally. So I was pivoting earlier. I would love to hear about what you're doing now with Gen Pop training and how you're training online too, right?
Yeah, so I'm here at Mercy Sport Performance, powered by Exos. So, like I said earlier, I work for Exos, and Mercy is a hospital that basically hired on Exos to run their performance site. So we do majority of sport performance training. So we have, I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's actually like a ice rink right there. So this is nice. The St. Louis Blues practice arena. So upstairs here we have a bunch of space for sport performance. A lot of hockey players in here, obviously, but we work with all types of sports. And then we have just like Gen Pop, like adult population that comes in here too. I would say that their programs are different than a lot of other gyms that they'll go to. They're not coming in and necessarily just doing like HIIT training and like trying to do weight loss and stuff, which, that's part of it. And we have people in here that obviously want to lose weight. But we try to treat this the same way we would with our athletes. We're going to come through. We're going to try to make them actually move better and feel better. Most everybody, including kids nowadays, have tight shoulders and tight hips from sitting or being on their phone or being on their computer all day. So we'll make sure we address all that stuff. We work on strength a lot. We'll still do like plyometrics and running and skipping with our adults. And we get a lot of like former athletes who are, now in their 40s or something that used to play college ball or even high school or whatever. And they just really enjoy like moving like an athlete again and not just like getting put on a machine and doing leg extensions for 3x10. So it's pretty exciting to see like people come in and see that difference. And then usually once they kind of see that difference, they're hooked on it for sure.
Solid. Yeah, it sounds super fun.
Yeah. And then as far as online goes, I kind of started that like during the pandemic, trying to see if I want to do like online training at all. And I found Train Heroic, which is, I've used a lot of platforms. Theirs worked really well for me in the sense of it was really easy for people to sign up for anybody's program. So mine or other coaches, they can just like go to the marketplace and find coaches, find a program that works for them, and then just click pay and immediately get access to it. There's like obviously like videos and all that kind of stuff on there as well. And it was funny. I originally was like making programs for specific like groups of people and then trying to market to those. and I wasn't getting shit. And then eventually, I mean, the app, it's more money the more people sign up, right? So right off the bat, it's like $7.99, super cheap. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write my own programs on here because I have access to the app instead of using Excel. I'm just going to put my programs on here. So I did that. And I literally posted about it, like doing my own workouts. And then I ended up having like a bunch of people actually sign up for that because it was like, oh, these are the workouts that he actually does. So it's funny how that resonated way more with people than me like actually trying to like sell them what I thought that they needed or what thought they wanted. So yeah, I kind of just rolled with that now, and I still just write my own workouts up there and try to make it pretty cheap for people. And it's kind of built up a little bit of a community. We got like 30 people on there right now, so nothing huge, but it's been fun. It's kind of just a little bit of a side gig for me.
It's cool to know that there are 30 people out there going through the same pain today that you are.
Yeah, I'm about to after this. We got leg day today.
Nice.
Oh boy.
That's why I like the CrossFit Open. It's only 3 workouts, but I feel like, I don't know, a part of something.
Yeah, everybody's doing it. It sucks for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'll have people like post about it. Like one of my athletes tagged me yesterday, did today's workout yesterday, and they were like, what the hell is overcoming isometrics, Brett? Like, this is fucking bullshit. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna do that tomorrow. It's gonna suck.
Solid. Well, thanks so much for chatting with us. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, guys. I don't know how you found me, but randomly, but like I said, I've been on a few podcasts, so it's always fun just to meet and talk to new people.
Heck yeah. And where can our listeners find you and your programming?
So yeah, you can just find me on Instagram. So at BK Strength Coach. And I have a link in my profile, so you can check out programming right there.
Awesome. Thank you again. And thank you to the Fit Heads. If you can rate and review on Apple Podcasts, that helps us out a whole lot. And we'll see you next week.